Why not?
We'll just start it, and I'll say they're going to do the intro, and I'm going to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, do that.
No, that's what I did. So you're good. So go ahead and go.
Oh,
What
you
episode
did just
is
mean
this?
that? All right. So welcome to the Guerrilla Social Work Podcast, episode
26 apparently, yeah.
26? Okay. So today we're going to be talking about moral dilemmas. We have our excellent guest, Mr. Brett Hoxer, here today. He's one of our, most favorite therapists on the planet.
Yeah, one of the OGs too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's been around from right around from the get-go, one of the original.
That dude reached out to me, and the way he reached out to me, like he sent me a letter, and I opened it up, and it was like there was anthrax in there.
Oh, yeah?
Well, I don't know. Anthrax and or just a letter. But
Could have been anthrax, but maybe not.
and by letter, I mean, I think he sent me an email and said, "Hey, are you guys hiring?" Which I thought was pretty ambitious to just say, "Hey, are you guys hiring?" I thought that was pretty cool. That was kind of like, "Oh, well, I don't know. Are we?" That was kind of the initial days of Alpha. So, speaking of Alpha, this podcast is brought to you by Alpha Counseling and Treatment. Alpha is the largest and most respected provider for justice-involved clients in need of sexual offense-specific treatment services, as well as any other forensic treatment services. If you're involved in the criminal justice system, Alpha is the ticket for you. So we're JRI certified. We provide moral recognition therapy, substance use disorder treatment to any justice-involved clients. We have clinical professionals, have over 60 years of combined experience in providing clinical treatment in both inpatient and outpatient settings. Provide evidence-based practice using cognitive behavioral interventions. Anything else we got to say about Alpha? Other than that, we're awesome.
Yeah, we're awesome. That's the other piece.
Yeah. That'll be okay. Yeah. Any other advertisements we got to plug
Yeah,
today?
we actually have a new one here.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so I have a script here that our sponsor instructed us to read verbatim. So here we go.
Isn't that weird? You
Yeah.
got to spice that up, dude.
This is from mindysmutts.com. So if you have some time, please check out mindysmutts.com. It's a super subscription-based website. If you liked the CD-ROM version of mindymutts.com, then you will love this site, mindysmutts.com. For the first time ever, Mindy's Mutts is opening our massive database of information on our furry friends directly to you. What does this mean for me, you might ask? Well, it means you could be amongst the small group of people who have access to the information that has been locked away in our vaults literally for years, all on mindysmutts.com. Mindysmutts.com is a comprehensive study of all things puppy with your furry friends in mind. So if you're interested in what Mindy's Mutts entails, you know what to do. Log on to mindysmutts.com and type in the promo code Guerrilla Social Work, because why wouldn't you? That's GUERRILASOCIALWORK. Guerrilla Social Work, and just eat 'em up, yum. Mindysmutts.com. Yeah, so that's what we had to do.
I'm pretty sure you just put Mindy's Mutts out of business.
So I was told to read it.
like an idiot.
Well, they're not a loyal sponsor yet, but maybe. I don't know.
Good luck,
Hope.
Mindy's Mutts.
Yeah.
All right, let's get cracking.
Yep. Wait for
Now
it.
we're rolling.
We're rolling.
Yeah.
Mr. Brett Hoxer,
What's up?
you glad to be here, brother?
Super glad to be here.
Remember the last podcast you did?
I do.
When it was
train wreck?
I
yeah.
do. It was
when
bad.
When it was with Nita?
Let's blame Nita. That's my philosophy in life
It
lately.
was her fault. I mean, if we're being honest here, it's
super her fault.
totally her fault.
That's how I remember it.
I love passing back the microphone.
Yeah, we didn't have enough. Yeah, it was ultimately my fault because we didn't have enough microphones. So we're like, yeah, it'll work. Just hand it off between the two of you, which just equals
couldn't
out to be
see.
an hour of.
Yeah, couldn't hear either of us.
Yeah, it wasn't very good.
That was
Yeah.
one of the never released episodes that was in the
It's going to be the director's cut.
vault. Yeah.
When we're dead, they're going to release it.
The director's cut, like that
posthumous version.
Remember that Alexander movie by Oliver Stone?
Oh,
so then,
awful.
so it was like
Regular
the
cut
worst.
sucked.
It was the worst movie ever, and then they released the director's cut, and it was even shittier. Like,
Yeah, you're supposed to make it better. Yeah.
And then it was the director's cut. And like,
That was a rough movie.
dude,
That was pretty
nothing
brutal.
you could do about that would get it better. And it was so promising too, because like it had. Who was it? Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, yeah.
But Jared Leto was in that too.
Jared
They had a
Leto.
good cast.
And
Dude,
then
like,
Angelina Jolie in that?
She was.
Yeah.
And
That's the problem. We don't even remember who's in it. It was so
right?
bad.
I think Rosario Dawson was in it too. But like if it had Jared Leto and Colin Farrell like making out and stuff, I was like, that's okay. I can look at that.
That wasn't the problem with it.
Yeah, no, I was actually
just awful.
I was looking forward to that actually.
yeah. Watch those beautiful men kiss.
Yeah. Dude, have you seen the new Mission Impossible?
Not yet.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Oh, it's pretty great.
It's awesome.
Is it?
It is
No, I haven't
so
seen it. It looks
so
pretty
good.
great.
It's so good.
Wait, you have seen it, Hoxer?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
Wasn't
But
this
it
where
looks
like
good.
didn't he like legit break his ankle on one of the things? He was
Yeah.
like jumping between
That's
buildings
right.
or whatever.
He's
Yeah.
nuts.
He's
Straight up.
hot too, bro. I mean,
He's still pretty hot.
yeah.
Dude, maybe Scientology isn't that far off. Like, I mean, he's doing okay.
Yeah.
You know? And he's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
that's true.
There's something in the water over there.
What?
I think he was doing okay before Scientology, but that's all right.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's born into it.
Oh, he was? He signed
4th
that-
of July.
I love that they make you, dude. The funny thing about it is, and I don't know if it's funny, I love how they sign, you sign the contract for like a billion years or something like that. Isn't like, or 4
Yeah, it's
billion
some
years?
stupid number.
Yeah.
To be on
but
the
like
Sea
that's,
Org.
Not stupid if you believe it. It's cool.
that seems like a, I mean, that's pretty fair if
That's
you
pretty
get right
smart,
down to
too.
it. Because in any other religion, dude, you're in it for forever, eternity, right? You're in it for eternity. Like there's no
That's
4 billion
true. I
Oh,
guess
this is
it would
only
end.
$1 billion.
Right, when it comes to an eternity, what's a billion,
billion?
son?
That's not
The
bad.
drop in
That's
the
not
bucket.
bad. Jeez, an eternity? Come on now.
That
Speaking
would be quite the dilemma whether or not I'd sign that contract.
ooh, look at that segue.
Look,
Look at
yeah.
that segue.
Dude, segways are the worst.
I was gonna try.
Remember when that was supposed to revolutionize transportation?
Oh,
Segway?
actual
yeah, I'm talking about
segways?
the stupid Segway that you stand on.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then.
Did you know that guy? He died on one. The guy that invented it died on. He went off a cliff on a Segway.
You know what the Segway reminds me of? It reminds me of that South Park, the bike that's hard to ride.
Yeah.
You're all. I love. It's like just the bike's nearly impossible to ride. You're like you look
The
at it.
handlebars are all bent down.
It's got
dude.
that
was
wheel
awesome.
in the middle that's all oval shaped. It's like I was like that reminds me of that. But it's speaking of part of this we're talking today about moral dilemmas. Part of this was about they were talking about, I think it was on Rogan's podcast, they were talking about autonomous cars and like how they were saying that's if are those ethical to have those on the road? Because didn't somebody get killed by one or something like that recently?
Maybe.
That's what
Yeah,
they
there
were
was
trying-
one involved where they found out it was the car's fault. Like a lady got hit or something. But
I remember hearing about that.
it was
Yeah.
the car's
Yeah.
deal.
But they're only saying there's only been one. And I'm like, yeah, but how many autonomous cars are on the road right now? There's like 5.
Yeah, like percentage wise, it's not good.
Yeah. If you look at it like per capita, that's awful.
It kills 20% of people.
But no, this is so before we get into this, so how long you been with us, Brett?
I think just over 3 years.
My man, look at
Yeah,
that.
it's been a minute.
Yeah. And yet what's your function here?
What's my function?
You're a
Conjunction.
You're a therapist. I know that.
I am a therapist.
Yeah. And then you primarily, you're at our jail facility a ton.
So I do a couple days over at Weber County Jail on our contract there, and then I do our outpatient stuff here in Ogden as well. Used to do Salt Lake, but then I moved.
I know.
Because you got to bang a
getting
new house
sad
that we
down.
need to ruin, by the way.
Dude,
Yeah,
see,
we
here's
gotta
the thing.
trash it.
I'm gonna call you on that because you keep on saying that, but I haven't seen you.
I have yet to get the invite.
Well, you haven't invited us.
No, you just get
Housewarming party.
Well, it's last I checked, if you were gonna have someone come trash your house, you don't exactly send out.
No, that's the best
RSVPs.
part.
Just show up.
I'm just-
ruin my house.
I'm just okay. No, I'm just gonna say this is one of those be careful what you wish for moments. Like we say, okay, we're gonna trash Brett's house, and you go, and normally you go over there and like, oh, we're gonna dump these crackers on his floor. I'm telling you, the last
heard
house.
stories.
Remember that Salt Lake house that we went to?
I was thinking about that the other day, actually.
I think about that every day.
Wake up and shower. Yeah. Is that the one where Alan was doing shots of dish soap?
Yeah. And we kept putting stuff in the microwave, and that guy got so mad at us.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to put CD collections in the microwave.
Dude, these crackers look good. Just smash them and put them back in the
Get in their pantry and ruin all their food.
Don't even eat it.
We were jerks back then. So, well, anyway, so when we talk about moral dilemmas, basically the purpose of this, we usually do this in a group session. And so one of the things we try to help our clients understand is that, excuse me, even though that there's rules and that we talk about, a lot of the stuff we talk about on the podcast is about rules that they have regarding their probation and parole. But those rules, there's such a high standard sometimes, and there should be, because these sometimes are high-risk sex offenders transitioning to the community. Those rules sometimes come into conflict with one another. And so they still, when they come into conflict, in other words, they have to say, okay, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do this. And they have to make a choice. They can't just not make a choice. And what we're trying to say is, okay, start to think of these moral choices and morality. We talk about, okay, this is right, this is wrong. Understanding like the way that you think about these things helps the clients determine how they behave. And this process that we go through today, we're going to go through a few different moral dilemmas, but give the listeners an understanding, at least from our perspective, what we would do in these situations. We usually pose these questions to clients, and these are all fake. None of this stuff's ever going to happen, but it's a thought experiment. And what it does is the resolution means that you have to make a choice, and the choice may be unsettling, but nevertheless, we want them to start using a thought process. And it starts to, even though these are kind of extreme examples, it starts to give rise to them, to give them insight into how their minds work in terms of morality. Because morality is very relative to the individual. From one person to another person, what Jeff thinks is right and wrong, I may disagree with. Same thing with Brett. Same thing with Justin. So that's kind of the crux of this. Even though this hasn't always gone off without a hitch in some groups. Haven't I sent dudes in seizures or something running this group?
It's been a couple of years at this point, but I had Mace cover a group for me once. I was out of town or something, and Mace runs this moral dilemma group, and I had not previously been exposed to the way that Mace runs this particular group before, so I didn't know what was going to happen. But I got phone calls and text messages from two separate clients. Both of them saying how traumatized they were from Mace's group. One of them said he had a flashback and went right across the street from our Ogden office and got himself a tall boy and chugged it. And then I think the other guy went home and drank also, and then proceeded to tell me about it, and talked about the way that Mace's group had triggered them. And I did not know. I called Mace up and I was half amused, half upset, because you kind of set my clients back a good 6 months in treatment as far as how I'd helped them.
Come on now, son. You know what that's indicative of? What that says is that you think about the groups previous to that. Jeff is just playing patty cake with these dudes.
What's you doing in group, Jeff?
He just busts out Candyland. He's all, this is what we're going to do for group today, guys.
Yeah.
So then I was
take the gentle approach, and I have candy in my groups. Yeah.
Well, so for any listener kind of going over this, I guess defining this a moral dilemma, if you guys are wondering what that actually means. So everybody knows a dilemma is like an argument presenting two or more equally conclusive alternatives. And a moral dilemma, on the other hand, poses a choice between equally unsatisfactory alternatives. And it's related to how we ought to act and live. So we'll kind of do some warm-up ones with you guys. I don't really know if we want to get into these because these are pretty simple, these ones. Because you guys know the origins of the moral dilemma. Like, have you guys obviously heard of, the trolley problem?
Yeah. The standard ones.
Well, we got to talk about are we going to jump right into these? Because I think
I don't want to. These are just warm-ups. I want to say, and this is kind of where this originated. And these are just thought experiments in ethics. That's all they are. So this is not one I want to answer, but this is for people to understand this. So basically this is the format, and this is how we're going to do it for here today. So the rules on this, and I'll repeat these rules. So when we do this, I kind of tell clients, look, the rules are, you're going to have two options to answer the question. Okay. You have to choose one of those options.
Every group, there's one guy.
Have to.
But what if?
Right. What if there was?
We could do that forever.
So there's basically two rules. You have to answer, and you have to tell me why you chose that answer. The second rule is you can't bring in a third option. So even though there could be third options, like the thing is these are thought experiments. They're make-believe. We're pretending here. So there's elements of this that sometimes you're not going to understand on some of these, and you're going to want to say, well, what about this? And we just got to leave it at that. We can't really interject those. And people get down to that, and it's kind of funny how they get into that. I'll share some experiences I've had in some of these. But
there's value in there's value in making people choose one option or the other. And that's not to say that it mimics real life, and it's not to say that you're only left with two options. In fact, in treatment, we try to teach these guys to think of as many options as they can, brainstorm options, come up with as many as possible. But
I was just going to say, anytime I run this group, this is one of my favorite groups to do, by the way. I always kind of at the end say, like, okay, now real life, what's the third option? Like, let's not get let's do some problem solving. Like, what's actually, but no, 100% based for purposes of, hey, it's not always going to be a perfect, happy
There's not always a third option.
Yeah, there's really not. Yeah.
Well, and I think that boils down to sometimes we just have to make crappy decisions.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we might not like the outcome of our decision. But this is, a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. Can I pay attention to the thoughts that went through my head that got me to that conclusion? So making a bad decision, well, welcome to being a human being. Mm-hmm. The question is, can I recognize that as a bad decision? Can I go back and understand my thought processes that got me there and intervene on those, given more information or more options in the future? That's essentially what we're trying to teach clients anyway. Yeah. So this railroads them. Pardon the pun, because we're going to talk about trolleys here in a minute.
Bad pun.
This railroads them into making two equally crappy decisions. But some of them are a little bit, because these are a little bit more, these kind of warm-up ones are a little bit more obvious, and they set the stage for why people would do what they do. So the modern form of this was kind of first introduced by this guy, Philippe Foot, in 1967, and the trolley problem goes a little bit like this. So you see a runaway trolley moving toward 5 tied up or otherwise incapacitated people lying on the tracks. Geez, excuse me. You're standing next to a lever that controls a switch. If you pull the lever, the trolley will be redirected onto a side track, and the 5 people on the main track will be saved. However, there's a single person lying on the side track. You have 2 choices. So 1, you do nothing and allow the trolley to kill the 5 people on the main track. 2, you pull the lever, diverting the trolley onto the side track where it will kill 1 person. Which is the most ethical choice? So aside from that, I mean, when they did this research, which one do you guys think most people chose?
Let the people die.
Let the 5 people die?
Yeah. Well, on paper, because I think there's the aspect where if someone has to fit... Well, now we're just answering the question. But if I have to physically pull the switch to make someone die, I feel like... Because most people on paper would be like, oh, yeah, for sure, make the 1 person die. But I feel like in real life, how would that really play out? I don't know.
Well, so the research on this, it's kind of interesting. They said the most people, the majority of people surveyed in this, it was about 67%, said they would pull that lever and divert that onto the 1 person. And essentially when they were asked why, they're just looking at this and saying, okay, well, the value of human life, I factor that in together. 1 is clearly less than 5. Therefore, I pull the lever, 1 person dies. And just to cite the study on this, folks, Peter Singer from Ethics and Intuitions, the Journal of Ethics, this is where that kind of came from. So, but there's a variation of this, okay? So they did the same basic issue, right? But this one has a variation. It says, as before, a trolley's hurtling down the tracks towards 5 people. Same scenario, right? But you're on a bridge under which it will pass. So you're standing on a footbridge, you're looking at the trolley, it's barreling down, you see the 5 people. And next to you, right, you can stop it by putting something very heavy in front of it. And as it happens, there is a woman of size standing next to you. We'll say that, okay? So
enough to derail a train?
Yes, sir.
In this experiment, yeah.
And so every time I do this in group, guys are like, what? Like, just stumble. It's really funny. Anyway.
So your only way to stop the trolley is to push her over the bridge onto the track, killing her to save 5, should you proceed. And even though the outcome of this is exactly the same. One person dies and 5 people are saved. It flip-flops, and the majority of the people will not push that person off. Why do you guys think that is?
It's more personal.
Yeah.
Like you're more like, so what is it? The Milgram Experiment or whatever? Was that the one where they're shocking people?
Yeah.
Is that,
yeah.
So if the person was sitting right next to him getting shocked, I feel like people wouldn't push it as far. But like where they're behind a wall or whatever, they can kind of hear them. There's a little more, you're detached.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because the Milgram Experiment, because they talk mostly about the baseline study, and the baseline study, and maybe that's actually where the 67%, I don't know, people are probably like, oh my God, he's so stupid. Maybe 67% of the people who were shocking people took them like all the way through because of these prompts. And they were doing this right around the time that Adolf Eichmann was being tried for war crimes because of World War II. Yeah. And they were doing the Milgram Experiment. But the funny thing is that they did a bunch of variations of that. So it was because they had multiple prompts too. They had 4 prompts, I think. And as the prompts got more and more, when it got to the 4th prompt, it was basically, they were trying to say, if you talk to anybody about the Milgram Experiment, they'll say, well, that's just a show of people following orders, right? So you just follow orders. But they had people, if there was a person sitting in the same room and you're shocking them, it goes down by 20%. There was another one where you had to put their hand physically on a metal plate that would shock them. That went down. When you had 2 other people in the room, that would go down. And the one that went down the most was when you had 2 of the lab technicians arguing with one another, saying we shouldn't do this. And then it went down like to 0. Nobody shocked anybody after that point. So it's funny because people will, if they're in the other room and you just have a white lab coat dude overbearing you with a clipboard, I don't know why that's scary. They'll follow through.
Authority figure kind of sitting. I think about that with certain cases, like I think of like insider trading and stuff like that, or like the pyramid schemes where they take people's, or Ponzi schemes. I mean, would that person really go walk in someone's house and take that money? No, probably not a chance. Yeah. But if I move numbers around on a screen or talk to people and I get the money,
it's just numbers on a computer.
It's the same thing. But it just feels more detached from what's actually happening.
Yeah. There's a documentary on Netflix called Dishonesty.
Love it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's great. And Dan Ariely talks about
that guy with the burned face.
Yeah. Really good stuff.
But I hope he never fixes that.
I like it.
It's his look. But he talks about that, how they have these matrix experiments where they have people solve these math problems, right? And then
they have Keanu Reeves solve it?
No. No, so they solve these math problems, and for every one you get right, you get $1, right? And people would just cheat through the roof on these, right?
It's on the honor system. You got right. Yeah.
One of them, and the one that like where it escalates particularly is where you turn your sheet in like at a desk on one side of the room and say, "Hey, I got 10 right," or whatever, right? And they give you tokens, and then you take those tokens to the other side of the room to someone at another desk that's giving out money for these tokens, right? Yeah. And even just that little bit of distance, like versus where if you handed in your test and said, "Hey, I got 10 right. Here's your $10." Cheating goes through the roof when it's go get your tokens, then walk across the room and get your dollars for the tokens. Right. Even just that little bit of distance, cheating went through the roof.
Yeah.
So it's interesting with distance.
Doesn't feel like it's actually money. Same idea that casinos operate on. They want you to use chips because it doesn't feel like it's real money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so the personal feel of this is exactly what they've kind of researched on this and said. I mean, the basic distinction is that in the first case, where I'm just nobody intends harm to the other person. Harming the one person that's going to get rolled over by the trolleys, that's kind of just a side effect of pulling that switch, right? I'm saving 5 people, whereas the other one, harming one, is an integral part of saving their lives. So that's where so even though the outcome is exactly the same, and the outcome is exactly the same, you now are much more close to that. And in order to save those 5 people, you have to create harm to do that. And most people won't do that. The majority of people won't do that. Flip-flops on that.
It's like, if you remember in The Dark Knight, love the movie, right? There's the part where they got the people on the boats, and one boat's full of inmates, and the other's full of just regular people.
Oh, yeah.
And the dude that's like lobbying hardest, he's like, no, we can't.
That's fake though, bro.
Well,
Debo would have grabbed that shit and immediately
100%.
Yeah, he would have murked that. He would have murked that captain and taken that thing. He's like, I'm Debo, and then he's blown up that dude. I would have too. Like, you'd get halfway through that sentence, and I'd be like, give me that thing. Press that button immediately.
Well, I think that's what's difficult about. So that's a good example, like the moral dilemma that I usually talk about in my groups is. A lot of times it ends up being a situation where like even inaction is a decision, even not making a decision is a decision. And I think that's where it gets really tough because even if I don't do anything, I'm choosing one of the options that's not ideal for an outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
We had
so you'll be in those positions where it's like you're going to have to choose something, and maybe all options just suck. So that's usually because what happens in my groups. Of course, you get the guys. Bantering back and forth, and then they're kind of like, sometimes you go like, what's the point of this? Like, this is never gonna. It's like, this is the point that you're actually thinking out the options. You're not just a knee jerk reaction. How do I feel? Okay, choose this option. Like, you're actually thinking, weighing the pros and cons, and how am I going to feel about this decision long term? Which one's maybe worse long term? Like, that's the whole thing is you're actually thinking that out.
And especially like the why question, like same experience from these groups. Like, so often there's like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? It's like,
just what you're doing.
Exactly the point. Think about it, dude.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I usually start, before I start jumping into these, I actually spend more time talking about what morals are, how we decide what they are. And one of the things that I was going to say earlier is when we put them into a situation where they have to choose A or B, and we don't allow them a C, what we're doing is we're making them really clarify what values they have and what they assume to be moral. And then like from there, I like to kind of lead the conversation to, well, what is morality? How do we know what's moral? And Mace, earlier you were kind of bringing up the problem of moral relativism. What's right for you isn't right for me, isn't right for Brett, it's right for Justin. And maybe the four of us can agree on a particular moral, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what the four of us agree on matches up with what the rest of society does. So kind of finding things that are objectively good and objectively bad is kind of tough. And so I've actually been looking into this stuff, trying to figure out, well, how do you come up with something universal, like a universal objective morality without bringing religion into it? Because that's kind of the obvious direction people will go is, objective truth means there has to be an omnipotent, omniscient being that creates the objective truth. Well, shit, what are we doing when not everybody can even agree on if there's a creator or not and which creator to worship? And kind of the idea there is that, a moral is basically a rule that's designed to positively impact the well-being of a thinking creature. So that allows for animals too, right? Because moral decision-making involves any kind of thinking animal. But it's centered around well-being. And that's the point I try to make to group members is we all have self-interest in our own collective well-being. And for the most part, our morals are based around that. And so the golden rule, I think, is kind of the usual moral rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's good if everybody's kind of on the same page. Like if the four of us have an idea about what right and wrong is, then I'm going to treat Mace the way I think that I would want to be treated because I know that he has a similar belief system. He's going to probably do the same. And so if we have all the same moral underpinnings, then the golden rule works. The silver rule, though, might be a better rule.
What's the silver rule?
I've never heard of this.
It's that which hurts you, do not do to other people. So it's kind of like the golden rule, but with like a negative. So in other words, if I like, Mace, if I were to punch you in the face,
I'd kill you.
Because why?
Straight up.
Why would you kill me?
Because it's mean.
To maintain my pride.
Yeah. If I punch Mace,
show you respect.
Yeah.
It would be a damage to his pride and maybe also his nose or his lips or wherever.
Yeah, they're ugly enough, son.
Yeah,
they're cute.
But in other words, it would damage you in some way. It would either physically damage you or damage your pride, maybe both.
Right.
And so you'd kill me to retaliate. Well, look,
it's escalated quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's immediate.
Look, the value of that is that like I know that I don't want to get punched in the mouth, and so I'm not going to do that to you either. Mm-hmm. So it's like the golden rule, but with like a negative on it. Because again, if I have the golden rule assumes that what I deem to be moral is what you deem to be moral. And that might not be the case. So I might be ascribing what my personal values are onto you, and you might not want to be treated that way. But rather than doing that, I decide, well, right here, right now, I don't want to get punched. So guess what? I'm not going to punch you. So it's that which hurts you, do not do to others. And that's better for creating a moral landscape for people that have different beliefs and that have relative ideas about what good and bad is. And it rather than compelling you to action, it compels you to, or it stops you from doing a bad thing. It's a simpler thing to go by.
But that's so that's, I think, where Justin's kind of talking about, he's saying, not making a decision is a big decision sometimes, right? So I think I agree with what you're saying, but it's not very prescriptive. It's just saying, don't do this.
It's incomplete.
It's not, the golden rule to me, I think, is flawed because you're saying to somebody, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm counting on something that I actually cannot control. I can't control how others are going to react to me. And even though I would prefer that they do unto me in a certain way, I can't really control that. What I would say instead is do unto others that render you the best possible outcomes. Now, you have to counter that though a little bit. Okay. So do unto others that render the best possible outcomes for you.
Right.
Okay. That does not necessarily mean whatsoever that I'm going to take advantage or abuse or anything like that.
It's not as Machiavellian as it sounds.
Well, if I act in self-interest always, most of the time, if all of us act in self-interest, it's mutually beneficial to one another. If we're both acting in self-interest and we're mutually benefiting from one another, it's okay. We're not harming one another, and we both reciprocate because it's in our best interest. Right?
I think you're talking about the value of capitalism.
I'm not referring to. I'm not. What I'm saying is I'm saying that I don't want to count on others to do those things. I want to control it as much as possible. So I'm gonna do unto others that render the best possible outcomes for me. And if I do that, that doesn't rely. So I can just be nice to people. And expect them to be nice, but being nice to somebody who's a dick doesn't always work. So do I need to approach that person differently? So yeah, I need to do unto others that's going to get me the best. I don't need to be a dick back, but think of how many clients that you have that are difficult to work with. You have a different approach with them than clients who are a little bit more, let's say, compliant.
Of course.
Right?
Sure.
So that's you doing unto others that's going to render the best possible outcomes for you, not doing unto others as you would have them do unto you.
So that's partially complete as well then. Because again, it's still that has the problem of it not creating an objective moral system. So you could combine the two. You could say, do unto others as I would. Phrase it again the way you're saying
do unto others that render the best possible outcomes for you.
By the way, Jeff, real quick, pull that closer.
Combined with that's what hurts you, do not do to others.
I agree with what you're saying. The only problem with what you're saying is that you want an objective moral landscape.
Ideally.
I think it's impossible. So I'll give you a perfect example for our clients. So our clients, when they go to prison, do morals change when you go to prison?
Of course.
You bet. You have to.
It depends on what we're saying there.
You have to
do your
adapt.
morals change
really
or do your behaviors change? Do your morals change or do your behaviors change to fit an adaptive way of living?
Okay, I'll give you an example, right? And then
I'm not sure there was an answer to my question. I was asking that rhetorically. Yeah.
Well, so
point, right?
So I'll give you an example, right? Yeah. If I grow up and my parents have taught me the value of being honest and going to police officers when I'm in trouble, right? Okay, now I go to prison. Do you go to the cops when you feel like you're in trouble?
Well, no, of course not.
What happens to you?
You get in a lot of trouble with the inmates.
So what I think there's a great quote, and it's by a gal named Jane Rule. And she says, morality is a test of our conformity rather than our integrity.
Well, if you're defining it that way, then what you're saying is true. It's just I wouldn't say that person changed their moral. They probably held the same moral. It's that they changed their behaviors to what it takes to survive in a maladaptive environment.
And this is where the institutionalization thing comes in a little bit with some of these guys, right? Because you get a dude that did 10 years or 15 years, and he's used to that. He's used to, no, I'm not gonna talk to my PO about this. I just violate. Well, that's for sure gonna get me nicked. I'm in trouble then. There's no way I can be And And that's
dude
the
started
moral
to shift his
change.
values.
Yeah,
Right.
the value changes at that point, right? And this is something I bring this up with outpatient guys a lot. Is and there's almost like a personality type. I swear, sometimes that happens where you get a dude that feels a lot of remorse for his offense, right? Feels super bad about it, tore his life up, tore his family up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And so that dude, when he gets out, somehow feels like I've got to be just ultra altruistic, giving, just, the model of a human being, right? So that dude is giving money to people hand over fist. He's just, anything I can do, to help somebody out, regardless of what it does to me. Oh gosh, I had to babysit my sister's kids last minute. Well, what am I supposed to do? She doesn't have a babysitter. Well, you can't babysit your sister's kids, dude. That's super against the rules,
That's
right?
actually a really good example of a moral dilemma that our clients have.
Not acting is acting.
Yeah.
like you have to make a decision.
I couldn't say anything about it. So
present both sides to that dilemma, Brett.
So if the dilemma is let's take the babysitting the kids, because that, for whatever reason, comes up a lot, and where a lot of times it's family members, bless their hearts, they just love the dude and just think, man, you did your time, you're in therapy, you've changed, plus you're not going to do anything again, or they think or some iteration of whatever that mindset is. So, gosh, can't find a babysitter, I've got to go to work in 10 minutes. Hey, Joe Bob, can you babysit, right? And so if he doesn't, well, then his sister, what's she supposed to do? She's got kids, she's got to hold down a job, money's tight. Oh my gosh, what do I do? Whereas the opposite of that being, well, but if I do, I'm putting myself at risk with the parole stipulations.
That's awesome.
What do I do? Right. And this is where I really like teaching these guys about this. Like, hey, you're gonna, if you make a decision, a lot of times you're going to be left with a crappy feeling in your stomach. And the right decision there is to say, no, look, I can't, because I'm for sure going to go back to, and right, wrong, or indifferent, the rules are the rules. I don't want to face a violation there. So
right.
But do I hurt my family members' feelings, or do I violate my probation? That's the dilemma.
The only problem with that, though, is that now your sister has created that dilemma, and with full knowledge that doing so would put you at risk in the first place. That's not a super, like, so I would say that is like pseudo caring for that person. So the thing is I understand you can disagree with these rules and you can think the best about your family members, but the problem is if you create that narrative and you create that scenario, you now are putting them in a position where they do have to make that decision, but you didn't make that decision. If you're sticking to your guns as a client, I'm dipping out. I'm not staying there
for sure.
And that's so I'm going to do unto others that render me the best possible outcomes. And what the best possible outcomes for me is, so I have I revoke my freedom and never babysit that kid again.
Yeah, then I'm for sure never there for my family.
I have my sister bitch and moan at me for a weekend, and then everything's good. I'm going with option B. That's what I'm doing.
What if she just bitches and doesn't moans, just bitching? Like, that's probably okay.
I like running the
she
decision.
Bitches and groans.
Sorry, what's that, Justin?
I said, what if she just bitches and doesn't moan? Maybe it's more tolerable instead of bitching and moaning. That'd be weird though if she bitched and then moaned? Like, is it? I'm just overthinking it.
Jimmy, why do you babysit my kids?
No, and anytime I'm doing supervisor stuff with family members or whoever for these guys, that's one thing I harp on with family members is, look, a lot of times you might look at the rules and say, this is stupid, right? Why do I need, he can't come over, there's 100 adults over for this family barbecue for the 24th of July. You're telling me he can't come over when we're never going to let him out of our sight? What the, stuff like, I mean, how often does that come up for you guys? All the time, right? With supervisors, and just really hammering that home to them. Hey, look, if you've really got, your whoever's best interests at heart, uphold those stipulations at all costs, because it might seem stupid, it might seem arbitrary, but the rules are the rules. Try passing that off with the law, because it's not. That argument doesn't go very well for you.
Yeah. Well, okay, so this is again, I think, to reinforce the clients when we're talking about this, I think it's important to reiterate to them that the behavioral choices that they choose to make express their moral attitudes. okay, as well as or detract from their moral character, right? And I think resolving a moral dilemma, that's why we present them with these thought experiments. Those give clues to them to possible moral deficits that may need to be improved on for avoiding those high-risk behaviors that could lead to potential violations or reoffense. What I'm trying to say is I think morality is adaptable because it's based on value systems. Mm-hmm. So when you reference religion, well, religion's different because there's a set of standards by which I follow, mm-hmm. and there's a set of standards by which I exercise that religion. And that's the value system. It is very prescriptive. And so sometimes I have a base to go off of. Whereas other people who have no religious base, they're kind of finding it along the way. And they're reinforced. If a value is reinforced over time, they're going to continue to say, this is important to me. This is something that I hold into esteem. This is something that I value. But that changes based on environment. So, yes, there are. I mean, I think we can all agree. Let's probably not kill each other, mm-hmm. But
there
I
goes
think
my weekend.
Yeah, but I think your environment. Yeah, my morals initially don't change, and I learn to adapt. That says, okay, I probably shouldn't say anything to the officers about anything because if I do, then I'm going to be labeled a rat, and I'm going to get shanked or something like that. But over time, that's reinforced and reinforced again and reinforced again. And then my values start to change because I'm finding that now I'm adapting to this environment. There's a really good movie. It's called. It sounds really lame, but it's on Prime, and it's really good. It's called Shot Caller. It's got Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. No? Do you watch Game of Thrones?
No.
Oh, I know you don't because you're too dumb, but...
No, he just likes good shows.
Oh, my hell. Yeah. Now everybody's going to say...
Yeah, it didn't catch my interest.
Dragons.
I know that sounds... Dude, I was listening to it, and our buddy Alan was telling me about it. Little Alan, we call him, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, this is, I was like, what, dragons? And what, people, ice walkers? I'm not watching that, stupid. Then I watched it, and I was like, dude, I like dragons again.
No, I read Dragonlance books in 6th grade, and that stopped there. So
you're more of a Sex and the City guy.
I stepped out of the nerd realm a long time ago.
Dragons have never appealed to me.
Anyway, that guy, he's like a lawyer. He gets into a car accident, and he goes into prison, and he gets like charged with, I don't know, negligent manslaughter or something like that because he's driving drunk and kills somebody. Goes to prison, and as a result of going to prison, he has to adapt. And while he's in there, again, he turns into this kind of gang. I don't know what the language is to it, but he adapts and he starts to live a new lifestyle.
Into Clink.
Yeah, he's into Clink.
Prison Mike.
Prison Mike.
I know we need to get to some actual dilemmas here.
This is all a dilemma. What are you talking about?
One of the things that we have these dudes do it's one of the CBISO, the Cincinnati, the Cognitive Behavioral Institute stuff, is we have them list like their top 10 values. And typically, like, what are usually like the top 3 things people say as far as stuff that they value? What does everybody say? Family.
Like freedom, independence, relationships, my job.
Family,
independence is big.
Justin did a pretty good list.
Their job, stuff like that. Yeah,
and so Mace, I forget how you were putting it, but you were kind of alluding to the idea that our true values can be reflected with our behaviors, our actions. What we actually do is, I think, a more accurate description of what we truly value. The things that we spend our time and our energy devoting ourselves to, that's actually what we value. And so sometimes getting clients to see that their day-to-day behaviors, I guess you just more have them decide themselves. Like, do your day-to-day behaviors match up with what your self-reported value system is? Are the things that you're doing day in and day out reflective of the things that you say you value? If you value freedom and independence, are you following the steps that are necessary for you to maintain your freedom and independence? If you value your family, like if you value family time, are you spending time with your family, or are you out running amok doing stuff with your knucklehead buddies? And so, like, a lot of times that helps them kind of, rather than having this system of values that is socially pleasing to hear or cast them in a positive light. They're truly having to reflect to see if these values they describe actually match up with their day-to-day behaviors. And I feel like that's a useful place to start
that's a good group. Yeah, exactly. Because that's the whole thing is a lot of times I think we'll operate. Because when I'm thinking of this as you guys are talking, like how many freaking moral dilemmas do you get stuck with? Probably on a daily basis calls you have to make all the time. So sometimes that starts with, well, actually, what is my value here? Do I even know what my value is? Like when I'm stuck with a tough decision, maybe I don't even know, or maybe it changes a little bit with this situation or this person or whatever's going on. Man, there's no way to track all that. So that's where it stops. The idea of, to me, this group is just kind of pausing for a moment and saying, hey, what do I value here? Short term, what do I value? Long term, what do I want? Because it's going to change over time.
For sure.
Yeah, everybody should have at least a baseline idea of what they think their morals are. And morals are a series of values, again, designed to enhance the well-being of thinking creatures.
Right. But that's kind of what I'm getting at is I think we have a problem when people talk about being self-interested as if it's selfish. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Self-interest benefits everybody. So again, if you the problem with the silver rule that I don't like is it's externalized. So if I try to create a method of them avoiding a behavior because it's going to bring harm onto another person, I'm counting on something. I'm counting on them giving a shit that it causes harm to another person.
Well, no, you're basing it off things that hurt you. Like if I feel like something would hurt me, I'm not going to do it to you.
Right, but okay. So what if I don't? What if I know that you're weak and you're not going to do it? Now, what's stopping me from doing it to you?
That you don't want it done to you.
I don't want it done to me, but why would it ever be done to me? Because I'm bad and tough and nothing, and I got a gun. What are you going to do?
Well, that's the idea of the silver rules. You need to stick to that conviction. I mean, I know, but I guess you could be a dick and say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that anyway." But
yeah, so what I'm saying is if you bring it back to you, right? If it's always about you, well, I don't want to harm anybody because harming someone could violate a law, and violating a law would be revoking my freedom, and I don't want my freedom revoked. Therefore, I'm not going to hurt another person.
Okay, so the silver rule can actually be packaged inside of the idea that I'll do unto others the things that are in my best self-interest. How do you put it?
Well, I just say do unto others that renders the best possible outcomes for you. If everybody acted
which would include not hurting other people because I don't want to get hurt.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Well, so that's tying into that. So it's almost like I really need to identify first off, what are my values? Second off, what's the overall goal that I'm aiming for?
For sure.
Yeah. So kind of like, because I think you both are kind of like actually agreeing on some of this stuff. Because I think of like, let's say someone's trying to get something approved through their PO, like an activity, you're going to see family or something, and the PO is pretty hard headed. Like, no, it's not going to happen. So the guy catches himself getting pretty fed up. So he wants to kind of one up the PO as a way to kind of win the war in the moment. Like maybe I just want to win, corner him into his argument, make him look bad or something like that. But if his overall goal is like, so he's saying, I want independence here. I want to have choice. I don't have that, but I want to see my family. If I kind of one up or show up my PO right now, I might maybe make him feel bad. I might maybe talk him into this, but then he's just going to shut this down even longer. So I'll actually be further away from my family longer. So maybe how do I want to like manipulate the conversation again, like manipulate as not a bad term, right, into a way that he feels listened to and then actually comes around more. So he's going to be okay with me going on these events. So it's like, and like you said, it's win-win. It's self-serving, but in a good way.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Because empathy is a big factor in this, and a lot of providers that work with sex offenders, they focus on empathy, and empathy is the holy grail. In other words, like, if you were able to recognize what you were doing to this person, then you wouldn't do it. Again, what if I don't care that it's hurting them? Yeah. If I don't care that it's causing harm to that person, I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh yeah.
But empathy works just as well if I say, okay, look, if I do this to this person, it's going to hurt them, and they're going to go tell the cops, and the cops are going to come get me, and they're going to take me to jail, so I'm not going to do it. Now I'm still using empathy. I'm imagining what it's going to do to this person because I'm causing harm to them, and then I try to think, how would they react to this? Oh, yeah, they might actually go and tell on me and get me in trouble, or they might do this or the other, or, so, okay, now what do that's what I'm saying. You're still using empathy.
So your point is that acting in your own self-interest, it's safer, because ultimately everyone's interested in acting in their own self-interest. And then even for selfish, hurtful, mean behaviors, that's still not in my self-interest to do those to people because of the social or legal repercussions if I do those dickhead things.
Yeah. A lot of people bring up this. They say, so what, you're telling me that if your kid was going to get hit by a truck, you wouldn't push him out of the you wouldn't like jump in front of it? I was like, of course I would.
It's in your interest.
And because here's the thing. I couldn't live with myself if I did that. I'd be living with a massive amount of guilt and have to deal with that. I'd rather be dead. It's in my best interest to do that so my kid can live. That's in my interest. Yeah. I'm still acting in self-interest. And yes, you can call it selfless. It's not. It's not selfless. It's self-interest, and it's okay.
Well, yeah, it's just
okay.
Like being nice to my friend. I'd be nice because it feels good to be nice to my friend. Like it feels good to have this is what I used to get in a debate with people online back in the day when I used to do that.
So
like a celebrity would do something, go donate $20,000 to this charity, but then they put these videos up and they promote it, and some people are like, well, that's so like self-interested. They're just doing it for the promotion. But I was like, so what? Like the people still got the donation and they get PR. Like, yes, they're doing it. They're not just doing it because it makes them mad. Like they're doing it for a reason. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, is that a bad thing though? Like, I don't know if that's bad.
For sure. And I've had tons of conversations with clients where they say something like, well, gosh, I'm just really questioning my motives. I just don't know. And again, like, man, SOTP down in the prison, bless their hearts. Like I think some of the times that program just really pounds this moral, you have to be this certain way. And some guys just, I swear there's a certain personality type almost where they internalize that such that it's like, oh, I shouldn't ever act out of my own self-interest ever, because that's what I did when I committed my offense.
We do get people.
That's what
my gosh, that was, and like, no, dude, that,
Well, an example that came to mind, because I think that's what's hard too, is
good point.
It gets tricky because there's so much defining self-interest too. Because like, say for example, I'm having an argument with my wife and I'm getting mad. In the moment, I just want to blow up because it's going to feel kind of good. Like it's in my own interest to kind of relieve some of that stress. But it's also in my interest to handle myself well and not damage the relationship. So it's both of them are in my self-interest. It's kind of like which one weighs out.
The long-term one starts to weigh out though.
Yeah,
right? And if you have so that's why
you would hope so.
No, and so I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny any of that. I think as we get through some of these, the short-term payoffs are in my self-interest, but the long-term payoffs are, and the long-term payoffs in a lot of ways, we're asking them to use consequential thinking. What is going to come after this? Yes, I could do this. I could do that. I could use drugs right now and I'm going to feel great. But later on, if I get UA'd, what's the consequence of that? Okay. And so is it in my self-interest to feel great? Well, of course it is. Is it my self-interest to maintain my freedom? Of course it is. So you have to decide which one works there. So should we do a couple of these?
Yeah.
Okay. So remember the rules. You have to answer, and you have to tell me why. And you can't bring in a third option.
Don't bitch and moan.
And I will tell you. And of course, I'll participate too. So we'll do
all the answers.
No, I've had time to think about
them. There's no right answer.
There's no right or wrong answer.
Jeff, come on.
Okay, so this first one, this is the one that your client drank a tall boy off of. So, this is
the wrong third option.
I don't think that's a true
This
story.
is called the concentration camp. This is you're an inmate.
This one's rough.
You're an inmate in a concentration camp. A sadistic guard is about to hang your son who tried to escape and wants you to pull the chair from underneath him. He says that if you don't, he will not only kill your son, but some other innocent inmate as well. You don't have any doubt that he means what he says. So should you pull the chair or should you not pull the chair?
I mean, I've thought about this one before too, because I've heard this one. I think I have to pull the chair because it's not about me anymore at that point. My son's dying regardless, and
you want to murder him.
It's going to be a crushing thing for me to deal with. I'm going to be probably taking myself out shortly thereafter. I don't know, but it's not up to me at that point. I feel like the morally right thing to do is to sacrifice my own well-being and keep an innocent person from going down. That's what I say.
Okay. What do you think?
Read the premise in brief one more time because I want to point out something.
So it's a sadistic guard is about to hang your son.
Oh, sadistic. Never mind. That changes it.
That changes everything.
Who tried to escape and wants you to pull the chair from underneath him. He says if you don't, he will not only kill your son, so your son's dead either way, but some other innocent may as well. So in other words, if you don't pull that chair, not only will your son die anyway, somebody else is going to die too.
So ultra crappy feeling either way, right? Like that's
either way it sucks.
That's the whole thing behind this. Like you're gonna feel ultra awful either way. If my son's dead, either way, and I don't have children, so maybe that's, I don't know, a decision made in a vacuum a little bit from me. But if my son's dead either way, I'm siding with Jeff on this one and
pulling that chair. Huh?
I don't know, maybe like. I say that in isolation, right? Like, yeah. I don't have kids, and I'm not in that situation. I don't know if I would have the gumption to do that, but
so I thought about this.
What about Justin?
Well, Justin go last. He can go last.
Okay.
So I thought about this, and I originally answered the way you guys are answering and my thought on this would be like, I think my son would understand what's going on, and so I mean he wouldn't want somebody else to get killed because of his mistake.
True. How old's your son?
He's 5, 53. So but now though, well in this. Not your actual son, basically. In this,
hypothetical son.
He's 5 in this. So yeah, he tried to escape. He's a wily little 5-year-old. Yeah. So but I've changed it though, and the reason why. So I would not pull the chair, and the reason why is because. So yes, my son's going to die, right? But okay, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the idea that my son's going to die, but he's going to die anyway. I'm not, and this guard's going to do whatever he's going to do. I'm not going to take responsibility for this guard's actions. This guard's going to do it. That's what he's wanting me to do. He's wanting me to take responsibility for his decision. His decision is, I'm going to kill your son. And if you don't kill him, I'm going to kill somebody else. Well, all right, bro, that's your decision. That's not on me. I'm not letting you put that on me. So I won't allow him to put the decision on me. And so I'm saying, I'm not going to decide. I'm not going to do shit because you made that decision. That's your decision. And yeah, you're going to kill somebody. Okay, that's fine. That's your decision, man. That's not my decision. Like you put that on me, but you're the one making that. So I'm not taking responsibility for that. Ultimately, I wouldn't pull the chair. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat actually on that. And who knows what would really happen?
But split.
Yeah, it would feel more like if you're going to do that, that's on you. But I'm not going to physically cause that myself. Like even if my inaction does, you're the one acting to kill. That's where I was at with it.
Right.
Yeah, I would not do anything.
I can see both sides. I'm still.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's a right or a wrong.
The guards are relevant to me, so that's why. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of one of those ones where on paper, that's what's like on paper. Oh yeah, for sure. Kill them. Yeah, because right? Yeah, but then in the moment, man, being the one that actually have to do that would be
real easy to say in this podcast room.
Yeah. Well, but these things happen like that all the time. Like I had one recently.
This?
Yeah, this all the time. During my first session today. Yeah,
what's 5 people got concentration killed. Camp, Justin.
Yeah, but these will come out of nowhere. Like I had a client, I'm really pushing him on. Like, yeah, you need to get out and you need to do things. You need to do this. And he was like starting to get into wanting to go play music with his friends and stuff. And so he calls me up and he's like, I know it's ultra last minute notice, but I want to go do this. And part of me is like, well, I don't really think that would be like a violation, but we got to let your PO know. And so it was like, I was torn between, well, therapeutically, I think he should go. But then as far as his supervision, I was like, I don't know if that would be approved. Then there's like, what's therapeutically good for him? But then also, how am I going to look if this backfires? And then, so I was caught between, it was like, and what's the right answer? I don't know what the right answer is. And we couldn't get in touch with his PO. And
yeah. Well, therapeutically too, though. So see, that's where, again, if he were to get in trouble, and then that rendered that he violated, and then he went to jail or something like that. Again, therapeutically, was that the best thing for him? Long term, obviously not.
Not at all.
Therapeutically in the moment, if he went and played with his buddies and then nothing ever came out of it, great, yeah, do that. But you're dealing with things you can't predict, and so I mean, it's good that you second guess that, and that's sometimes what we want them to do. Is we want them to say, well, that's it'd be really nice, but I'm just in a different space right now. I can't do that.
Yeah, so no matter what, I was stuck with either okay, I tell him no and then feel bad and kind of feel like I'm going back on what I've been trying to get him to do? Or do I say yeah and then I worry about, oh my God, is this PO going to flip or whatever? So it's like neither option was necessarily great in the moment.
Right. Well, and anybody, I think if you guys are listening to this, I want to hear, it's pretty cool because we got a bunch more subscribers now, like since we pushed that a little bit. Because we're like, how many downloads?
Did we push it real good?
Yeah.
Or did we just push it?
Push it real good.
I can't remember. I don't know where we're at. I'll have to check.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot, but I think some comments would be really good on this. I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on what you would do with the concentration camp example. You guys ready to hear the next one?
Please.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So this one's called The Accident. And so you're an emergency worker. You're a sole emergency worker, and I don't know why, because I know they always go in pairs, but don't ask me. Because it always comes out. Man. So you're an emergency worker that has just been called to the scene of an accident. When you arrive, you see that the car belongs to your wife. Fearing the worst, you rush over to see she is trapped in her car with another man. She sees you, and although barely conscious, she manages to mouth the words, "I'm sorry." You don't understand, but her look answers your question. The man next to her is her lover, with whom she's been having an affair. You reel back in shock, devastated by what your eyes have just told you. But as you step back, the wreck in front of you comes into focus. You see your wife is seriously hurt, and she needs attention straight away. Even if she gets attention, there's a very high chance she'll still die. You look at the seat next to her and see her lover. He's bleeding heavily from a wound to the neck, and you need to stem the flow of blood immediately. It will only take about 5 minutes to stop, but it will mean that your wife will definitely die. If you tend to your wife, however, the man will bleed to death, despite the fact it could have been avoided. Who would you choose to work on?
For sure, my wife.
Why is that?
I love her.
Well, Ani's cool, bro.
Yeah. Well, dude, if a guy ran over my dog and then crashed into a wall, and one of us got to be sorry, dude. I'd be going to help my dog because I love my dog, or I love whoever I'm choosing. That's why it would be like.
You know what I'm really glad you didn't say was that, and the dude is always like, my EMT senses would kick in, and I'd go to triage, dude, and you save the person that can be saved. I'm like, are you an EMT? No, I'm never. I'm like, what? What? Come on now. What do you know? Yeah, no, that's not how it works. Like you can't. You're not. I mean, I'm glad you're taking over the role, but you just turn into an EMT overnight. Like this is why they don't let doctors work on their loved ones when they come into the emergency room.
Well, for the moral dilemma, though, isn't the implication that you do know those things if you're an emergency responder?
I suppose so, but it doesn't mean that. The
emotion part.
Yeah, the emotional part. Sure. Like doctors have, the Hippocratic Oath and whatever else, but they still, if I was a doctor in an emergency room and my dad rolled in, they wouldn't let me work on my dad because I would make emotional decisions based on his care, not like the right decision. That's why they don't let you do that. So that's why, I guess you could in the moment make that decision if you wanted to. But yeah, I feel like my knee jerk would be to take care of the person that means most to me. Yeah, I'm just saying to never have been an EMT and then to all of a sudden be like, yeah, it's the EMT's code, bro. Yeah, nothing against EMTs. I'm just saying, like,
if you don't know the people, for sure. Yeah, but
when you're gonna get lit up by EMTs in the comments.
No, I love our EMT partners in the community.
That sounded scripted, man.
Yeah, I think that would EMT partners in the community.
I think that would be a hard one.
Who would you save? You're stalling over there.
What's the dude situation again?
Okay, so the basic gist of it is you got all the backstory. So if you choose to work on your wife, she
might live.
Slim odds.
There's a very high likelihood she's still going to die. And if you choose to work on her, homeboy's definitely dead. If you choose to work on him, however, he's definitely going to live, but your wife's definitely going to die.
I see. So, well, first off, this is where I sell out like a champ because the morally correct thing to do would be triage. And again, right there in the story problem, it implies that you know triage because you're making decisions based on my wife's going to die. Probably this guy might live if I work on him. So the implication is already there. So I think triage is actually but this is where I sell out. Like I don't care about the dude. And even though my wife betrayed me.
Yeah. Justin, did you even factor in the affair?
Yeah.
So your wife, even though she was hooking up with this dude.
My thought would be in that moment, I think just instincts for protecting who you care about would kick in.
Right. Yeah.
Plus, I tend to think about like as messed up as it sounds. Like I'm going off on a tangent here, but like I could go help a homeless person outside and give them a meal, but there's like how many people starving that could die tonight, but I don't really care to seek them out or find out who that is because there's just too much to worry about. Where he would be like, I don't know him, so in a way, kind of like, yeah, but if you die, I don't really.
We'll add a twist to that though. What if it was like your worst enemy from high school?
And I had to let him die? Well, then for sure I would let him die.
No, but
she betrayed you.
She betrayed you with your worst enemy from high school. Yeah.
My worst enemy? How many do I have? There's the worst one?
You can't save your worst enemy. You got to kill your enemy. You got to step on his neck.
So then there's a third option where you just stand there and don't act. But yeah, I still would have to go with
on his neck.
I still would have to go with save your loved one.
I had a client tell me. I had a client say something pretty funny because he's like, well, I don't know if it was funny, but it made me chuckle a little bit because it caught me off guard. He said, "Oh yeah, I'd save that guy so I could kill him." I'm like, okay,
it's not that bad of a choice, really.
Well, I'm like, homeboy probably don't even know you exist, dude. Like, why is it his fault?
Well, I always love in group, you get the dude that's been divorced 8 times. It's like, I'd let her go.
Yes, I bet you would.
It's like, I don't question why you make those decisions in relationships one bit.
Well, wouldn't you want to bring your wife back to life to like yell at her for a little bit? You know, I mean, there's that
but what?
Too.
So you're not even. So what? Okay, I don't know if you even gave an answer. I like interrupt.
I'd save my wife.
You'd save your wife.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not even factoring in the affair at all.
I don't think it would make a difference.
I think in that moment, it really wouldn't.
I don't think it would impact.
Well, unfortunately, I agree with you guys. I would. But, the thing is okay, so.
Did Brett even answer?
Oh, I'll get to Brett. I'm letting him go last.
Okay. All right.
The thing is, okay, so this is how I look at it. I think the affair is an issue, and it's something that you should that should be focused on. And, dude, I don't know if I'd care about triage too much. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but. I mean, I guess I could suppose I'd know about it.
I don't even know what
it
is.
Just save the person that can be saved. That has the most likelihood of
sequel to Entourage.
Right. So, yeah.
Like if it was just triage, you'd let your wife die.
Oh, okay.
Right. If you were just in that mode. So I think the affair needs to be addressed. And what I would say about the affair is, I don't know if there's any you would. I hate to think of a single action ruining a relationship. I like to think a lot of people say, okay, we get into a relationship, and if you ever cheat on me, then we're done. Okay, more times than not, that doesn't happen. And what I think is important to focus in on that is, I don't think anything's irreconcilable. I mean, aside from maybe abuse, if I'm beating the crap out of you, obviously girls bounce if that's happening. But
no pun intended.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is though is I've seen plenty of relationships and I've worked with clients where there has been a lot of infidelity and then the marriage has bounced back and everything's been okay. I'm not saying so. Yes, it's an issue, and does that mean that the relationship's going to survive even if I do save my wife? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe But I'd say, well, if I got into a relationship that far to the point where I'd marry somebody, well, I mean, that'd be really important. I'd at least try to save that person because of that. I don't even know who this dude is. He may not know me either. So I'm gonna let that boy bleed to death. And that's going to be it. So, I mean, if the relationship works out, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah. What would you do, dude?
Agree. Save the wife.
Oh, you save the wife?
Yeah. Dude can rot. No. He can't rot. No, really though, I agree.
To me, there's no big emotional attachment to that guy.
Yeah, and your imperative, I don't know, morally or having the training or whatever. I don't know what that's like. I'm a therapist, not an EMT. But no, I agree with what Justin said though. My first impulse would be protect the one that you care most about. And I don't know. I don't know that you'd be able to hit the override button that easily to say, well,
I don't know either.
Yeah, well, triage, but no, we've been together.
Yeah, if you're able to stop if you're able to stop in that moment and think it out, yeah, maybe you got some other questions to answer in your life. Like,
can I use a lifeline here?
What should I do here? Yeah. Well, that's funny because that's another, well, not funny at all, but like another moral dilemma. Someone that has that hardcore, if anyone ever does this to me, I'm leaving. Well, now your morals have changed though, because now you're in love with that person and you have a life with that person. So now that hardcore rule that I'm out, like it changes over time.
Totally
Things
does.
change.
Well, that's
Totally
right.
does.
Yeah, when you're faced with that, you think differently. That's why I think
actually being in the situation is.
I think you can set. I think you can set bottom lines. And that's another pot. Have we done that?
We did
podcast?
that. Yeah.
I mean, bottom lines you just got to be careful with. I think boundaries are a little bit more flexible, but a simple bottom line is, if you physically abuse me, I'm out. Like that's a pretty simple one. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people could agree on that. But I mean, I don't know. Those things just get too complex. So, but speaking of you caring for your loved one, this one will make you think a little bit more.
Next.
We got room for one more.
Oh no! Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we got time, dude.
Good.
God. So
You got somewhere to be, Jeff? Come on.
Time for one
so this
more.
is we got time for two more.
We got time to do whatever we set our minds to.
So
Choose wisely.
except for live on the sun.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
So this one's called The Neighbor. Okay. Oh, by the way, I want to hear what you guys would do. Would you save your wife, or would you let that dude die? Or wait, no. Would you save your wife? Or would you save that guy? No, I know we've answered that. I'm asking the listeners, homie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Neighbor. You have a wonderful daughter. She's 8 years old and has always been a happy, outgoing child. But a while ago, something terrible happened. She was raped. You are quite sure that the person who raped her is your neighbor. Your daughter is so traumatized she has stopped speaking, but she has in other ways been able to convince you that he is the one. Unfortunately, not enough evidence can be found to convict him. You try to put your life back together, you move to another house, and you try to help your daughter in any way you can, but it is clear that the experience has ruined her life and that of your family. One evening, you have taken your wife out to dinner at a restaurant when you spot your former neighbor at another table. He is eating alone and looks unhappy. You quickly finish eating and leave. The next day, you find out that your former neighbor's wife has been murdered. Enough evidence to convict him of the murder is soon found, and at first you are very happy. Finally, he will get what he deserves. But then you remember that you saw him in the restaurant at the time of the murder. You know he did not murder his wife. Maybe he paid somebody else to do it. You remember the police said that it had been made to look like it was a burglary. Maybe it was. You sit down to think. If you keep quiet, he will be convicted for the murder, and the real murderer will go free. If you give him an alibi, he will go free, but you can't be sure the real murderer will be found, and it is possible that the evil bastard paid somebody to do it. What do you do?
Dude, that's a hard one because I default towards I definitely have a core belief of two wrongs don't make a right kind of situation, and I tend to think of long term if I did that, even though he would deserve it. How would I feel about it long term? And odds are I would end up with that still happened to my daughter, and the guilt eats away at me for lying about putting him in that position, even if it was like totally just. So, yeah, I would actually probably without being in the situation, I'd vouch for him.
But you're not really lying. You're just not giving him an alibi.
That's lying.
To me, I feel like it's lying. Yeah, if I know.
That's
Lie
lying.
by omission.
Yeah.
I'm playing devil's advocate, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, I would
too
feel
easily.
like long term that would eat me up, and it still didn't change the fact that happened to my daughter. Like, it doesn't fix it. You know what I mean? And I would just feel guilty about it.
But don't you feel some sense of, gosh, justice has been served? And maybe,
probably
maybe
in the
he
moment,
doesn't.
yeah.
Okay, he maybe didn't kill her, but gosh, that dude deserves to go to prison because
Karma, son.
Yeah. I think in the moment I would, and I'm trying to anticipate once the emotion of that wore off, would it kind of eat at me? Did I lie, or like did it in a shady way to get him back? Yeah,
I'm just doing devil's
for
advocate
sure.
too.
Well, in the moment, it'd probably feel awesome. Yeah, to see
Yeah.
him get in trouble and go, but then it'd be like, well, she still went through what she went through, and now I have kind of that on my conscience. Well, it's almost like I made my problem worse.
So you're saying out of the fact that you would be living with a level of guilt that you're uncomfortable with, and this horrible thing still happened to your daughter, that you would give him the alibi.
Yeah.
Okay. Brett, what would you do?
I agree with Justin. I would not, or I would
For
exonerate
any
the
different
dude.
reasons?
Similarly, like I think that I would eventually just have that guilt just weighing on you, like me think about 5 years down the line, gosh, like just that, I don't know, like I think everyone's had that experience of just something's weighing down on your soul. And if you just think, especially into somebody's life, and even if you feel like, gosh, that, you know, that guy deserved it, that guy, you know, how could he, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he's not going to, justice hasn't really been served because he's not going to do time on, you know, whatever he did to your daughter. Like, and I obviously don't feel good about that either, but I agree with what Justin's saying. Like, it doesn't change anything, you know, and you're going to live with that ultra guilt on your conscience for how long?
Okay. What would you do, Jeff?
Matt,
let that guy go to prison.
The same as these gentlemen, for similar reasons. I think it would weigh on me. Also, like, it really sucks that my daughter doesn't get justice, you know, and knowing that this guy is out free, potentially maybe even hurting more people while my daughter's traumatized and her life's ruined. That's not lost on me. This guy's wife, the murdered wife or whatever, her family is going to get a false sense of justice being served. You know, they're going to kind of have that placebo effect, kind of like those psychic healers that do like cold readings on people and it's all fake, you know, and they make people feel good about.
How dare you?
Yeah,
that is
I dare.
1,000%
triggered.
real.
I dare bash those charlatans.
Triggered.
I dare. I think kind of, so it's not just about me, although that's mainly a part of it, is that, you know, I don't feel like two wrongs make a right, but also it's kind of giving a false sense of justice to the family of the murdered woman. I don't like that piece of it. And, then it also like risk management comes into play as well, right? And so there's conceivably a murderer running loose, and then there's also a rapist running loose because of what he did to my daughter. Boy, I don't know. Obviously, some people would argue which one's worse out of rape and murder, but I guess ultimately I have to come back around to that, kind of the two wrongs don't make a right. Although O.J. Simpson, I was not sad that O.J. had to go to jail for stealing those paintings, you know, or whatever it was he did. I didn't feel
he did
at
that
all
to
bad.
himself, though.
Yeah.
I didn't feel bad about that at all.
Yeah, how many people? That's exactly what happened in that situation.
No.
Like that.
He did this theft, but
well, yeah, but homeboy, like, no, don't get me wrong, but see, and this is so. It's funny you mentioned O.J. Simpson because I think of O.J. Simpson when I think about this, right?
That's what made me think of it.
I think about Naked Gun.
Well, the reason this is
those Hertz commercials.
This is the reason why. So as a result of in listening to our clients, one thing that I really just don't appreciate is injustice, right? And I think injustice, most of us like to think about injustice as somebody who has been overly convicted for a crime that they committed, right? And I'm not saying that our clients shouldn't be convicted for crimes and be punished. I think that's true, and they would agree too. The degree to which people are punished is where things come into question, I think, at times, right? And so you can disagree or agree on the merits of those things. And what I want to do is nail it. I want to nail it every time. I want you to give just the right amount of punishment as a result of now we don't. Maybe that's a fantasy.
So him getting his wife murdered equates to you getting your daughter raped.
What?
Right? He lost something. His wife was murdered.
Oh, no.
You lost something.
No.
Your daughter was raped.
No, I'm not.
So that's your point, right?
That is not even close to my point.
I think that's
what I'm saying is, though,
that's what I heard.
Is injustice works both ways. So I can't say, well, no, I don't want injustice to impact somebody that I care about. Like, it's injustice that happened to my daughter, right? But it's also injustice for him to go to prison for a crime that he didn't commit,
right?
Yeah. Right, and so I can't say, well, okay, I want both of these, so I have to support this because OJ is a great example. Because after watching that documentary that O.J. Simpson made in America, the way that I've put it is that dude is 100% guilty, but he deserved to be acquitted. And the reason why is because our justice system worked exactly as it should be. The prosecution dropped the ball, the police screwed up and ruined a lot of things. But if you think about, like, if you watch that, have you watched that? Any of you guys watched that?
I watched it.
Have you watched it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
like if you think about all of the mistakes that the police made with regards to forensic evidence, right? And since that time, the police, in terms of chain of custody and preservation of evidence and everything, has changed drastically. So OJ's case actually improved the criminal justice system. And prior to then, did you ever see? Well, I mean, we were teenagers, young teenagers. Court TV didn't even exist at that time, right? You didn't get to see cases. Yeah. So now that it's more transparent and that people are going to be, I think that's a good thing. I think that that's going to make people act more ethically in these circumstances and nail it, get closer to justice. So that's why I wouldn't support something like this, and I would give him the alibi, because I can't support injustice, regardless if it's a positive outcome for me, because that's not a positive outcome for me. I don't think injustice is great, no matter what's happening.
That's part of what I was thinking specifically to this moral dilemma as we're debating, is where my mindset would be is, okay, due to my own personal beliefs and what's happened to me, I can kind of take the justice system and twist it to fit my needs. But then the flip side, I don't want someone to do that to me. Like, so there's a part of, like, obviously our system has its flaws for sure, but I think overall it's very effective, and for that reason is quote unquote fair in most cases. Because if everybody can just twist it to fit what they want, then it's just that's just each man for themselves, and then that's way worse.
I think if you have a passionate, educated, and tenacious defense attorney, all the same qualities on the prosecution, you have a knowledgeable, impartial, objective judge, and then you have a jury of your peers who are willing to listen to this and understand the understanding of reasonable doubt. That system works perfectly, dude. Well, and I know that doesn't really exist sometimes. Okay, fine. People are manipulative.
People.
But man, I don't know if there's a better alternative. Well, so I'm not going to add to the crap.
Well, it's kind of like the idea of free speech. Me and Jeff were kind of starting to talk about this online, but like, if I can control what other people can say, then that means somebody can control what I can say. And I don't want that. So I've got to kind of put up with what other people say, because I want to be able to say what I can say. Yeah. Exactly. So it's the same idea. Yeah, obviously there's just this is a different situation, but it's the same thing. Like, I've got to allow for whatever to take place, because I don't want it being turned back on me.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do that. So like this moral dilemma, on paper, that sounds right. But if you're dealing with like someone actually being raped, then it's almost like the whole, what is it, rational mind and emotional mind, and then wise mind. Yeah, it's trying to find those. Where obviously in those situations, like finding your wife in a car accident, emotional mind's going to override like crazy.
Yeah, and this is where I think you'll see clients in groups change their minds, and then also I think bouncing these ideas off of one another starts to generate a changing of the overall, like, okay, how do I look at these things and what really what my knee-jerk reaction is, let the bastard go to jail, right? And then I think about it, I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, I just don't want that to be part of our criminal justice system, because some of our clients think that they got screwed, right? And in their minds, they're like, no, I got way screwed. I got raked over the coals. And I want to question them and say, okay, so do you want to add to that system? You're telling me you want to add to a system that you feel what delivered injustice in your direction, and usually they tend to kind of take a minute of pause and say, okay, maybe I ought to do this, and give that dude the alibi.
Yeah, this reminds me of when I was doing residential, we were running a group, and it was for substance abuse, and we were highlighting it. So just so you have a background, so this is like teenage girls, like younger teenage girls. Their parents send them to this place, and so there was one, she wanted to go to a school. It was known as more of like a party school, and so her parents were like, no, you're just getting sober right now. We're not going to send you off to a school where that's the main thing, everyone's partying.
Where'd you want to go? Arizona State?
I can't remember where it was, but it was like
UC Boulder, like right after they legalized.
Yeah, if you're going there, you're going to party. So so she was mad, so because her parents were like, I want you to go to this school. So in group, she's frustrated. So she's saying, well, I don't care what they say now, because so as soon as I get out, I'm just going to use. And so we're like, wait a minute. So to get them back, you want to prove them right that you can't control yourself, and you could see kind of the lights went off when you, went on. What I should say is, but yeah, she's like, you're trying to in the moment feel better about getting back at them, and in the long term hurting everybody. Yeah, just for a moment of kind of like revenge. Like, in order to make your point, you want to prove them right. Think about this for a minute.
Well, here, before we wrap up, let's do one more. You ready?
Let's do 7 more.
Okay, so I want to hear what you guys would do too. Would you send that dude to jail, or would you give him the alibi? Okay, and the reasons why that is. Don't write too long a comment. So I don't
write really long ones.
All right. So this one is called spam filtering. So it says, you are the network administrator for a rather large company. You have a young family and need your job to support them. As part of your responsibility as a network administrator is to monitor the emails of the organization. Usually this just means occasionally allowing through emails for staff members that have been accidentally blocked by the spam filters. One day you get a help desk request from a staff member asking for an email to get released. Normally it's standard procedure, except this time the request has come from the wife of a very good friend of yours. You recognize the name on the help desk request, so you quickly attend to the problem. As part of the procedure, you need to manually open up the email to ensure that it isn't spam. So you do, and you discover that it isn't. You find that it's actually an email to your friend's wife from her lover. You scan the rest of the contents of the email, and there is no doubt that she has been having an affair for some time now on your best friend. You release the email, but you can't decide what to do. Your initial reaction is to call your friend up and tell him about the email. However, you quickly realize that the company policy is very strict about revealing the contents of confidential emails of staff members, regardless of the contents, unless someone else's life is in immediate danger, and under no circumstances are you permitted to reveal the information. In any case, you know that revealing this information presents great risk because even if you don't do it directly, there is a good chance that the dots will be joined somewhere along the line and you will be found out. However, if you feel that by not telling your friend, you are aiding his wife in getting away with adultery and this troubles you greatly, what do you do?
That is a hard one.
This one for me, it was really easy until I put like faces and names with it. You know what I mean? Like for me, I thought like 100%, like whatever. Like I'm not gonna, like I gotta keep my job. I got a family to support. And then I thought about like my best friend of 20 years and like, oh shoot, like I don't know, like. Yeah. I still don't know. I honestly don't know.
That's where it's pretty situational too, because like, okay, look, I'm ultra cozy and got a ton of savings and jobs lined up. Then like, oh yeah, I want to tell my buddy. But yeah, it's like, what if also I'm going through a really hard time and I have a daughter that has some crazy disease and I got to pay for her hospitalization? Then that's going to weigh on my mind. Like, just at its face value.
Think each time that you saw your friend though, and
Oh, yeah, sure. I probably would tell my friend.
You tell so. The problem with this one is I don't know how serious confidentiality is to network administrators.
I've wondered about that too with this one.
If you're in I wonder if you got through. Imagine this. Imagine if a guy came in here, and you were seeing him for treatment, and through the course of you talking to him, you discovered that. He was having an affair with your best friend's wife. He didn't know you. He didn't know. I mean, would you tell your friend? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. I violate confidentiality. Like, no way. For the client, I'd probably figure out a way to get out of the relationship and not be his therapist anymore because now I have a conflict of interest.
Right.
I don't know if I'd tell my buddy though. Like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, that's our craft.
Well, 100%, you got to think about like, gosh, if you did tell your buddy, and if it somehow got like, there's a good chance, like it says in there, that somewhere along the line, the dots are going to get traced back to you.
For sure, it's like you're going to get if you tell, no matter what you do, if you send an anonymous letter,
right,
it's going to get back to you. Like that's all there is to it. So anybody listening to this, or you're thinking about this,
you got to play by the rules,
right?
Guys.
It's getting back to you no matter what. There's So the idea there is,
so basically, like you're probably going to get fired. If you tell your friend,
likely,
yeah. Well, and you think about like, gosh, if they, whoever you're, exposing in this relationship, in this affair, they're probably going to be upset enough, salty enough afterward that they're going to make a stink. Like, oh well, he broke.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I would worry about is if I did this as a network administrator, could I get another job as a network administrator anywhere
for sure.
else?
Instead of are you blackballed from there on? Like, oh, well, this guy doesn't respect,
Because if a client of mine goes to Doppel and says, hey, he violated my confidentiality, that's the gravest sin a therapist can make, right? Good luck. Like that's
right.
So self-preservation factors into this quite a bit. Like that's where I struggle with this one because I'm like super loyal to my friends, but the wild card here is if this was a therapist, it'd be easy. It'd be an easy answer, and I wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
But I don't know how serious network administrators take confidentiality. Like I don't know if they do or don't.
Right.
That's where I'm disconnected from it. So if I'm basing it strictly on what I know about confidentiality, I can't say anything because confidentiality of clients is crucial for doing what we do, and without it, we're nothing. So, if I'm dedicated to my craft and my profession, then I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to release it and let the cards fall where they may.
The other piece of this that might come secondary to the confidentiality is kind of like that. Is my friend going to be better off knowing this, or am I just going to ruin his life? In other words, is he better off red pill or blue pill? Is he better off knowing the reality of it? Because you can make an argument both ways there as well, and you can't predict the future to know exactly. Is him finding out? Is this going to be a benefit for him because he can see through the reality of what's happening, or is this going to cause crushing damage to him in his marriage and something that could have been fixable or whatever? Like that's the other piece too that weighs.
Well, that, and there's, I try to look at it this way too, like factually speaking, I know the facts as far as if I release this, I'm breaking whatever my job requirements are or whatever, and I'm putting my future at risk.
That's
I don't factually know what's going on in their marriage. I don't factually know what's happened between them, and I might see it on the outside, like, oh, I thought everything was good.
She's cheating on him.
But I don't know, did she catch him cheat on her, and she's pissed off and trying to get him back or whatever? Who knows? There's
you don't
a lot
have the
of
same facts.
There's a lot less, that I know for sure on this area. So I'll base putting something factually at risk based on something that I'm assuming is true. I think it's part of that. Because, within a relationship, I don't know how things are really going.
I picture you just send her an email. You're all, hey, Julie.
What the heck? First off, she's an idiot for sending that at work, knowing his best friend works as the network administrator.
So that's the other thing I factor into this is she's going to know I saw that.
Yeah,
she's gonna know I saw that, and no matter what, so I'm curious what happens after that, and I can speculate, and that's starting to bring in option 3, but not really. I'm just saying I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything. She's gonna know that I know, and because I know, my hope would be maybe she'll say something to preemptively cut me off from doing anything about it. But I'm not gonna say anything about it because now that I know she knows that I know, I'm hit. If I say anything, my job is over. And if I go over to get another network administrator job, which is now my profession that I went to school for, and again, I don't know much about network administrators, and I go there and they're going to say, oh, who's your reference? And I give my last job. Yeah, right, son.
Maybe if you're applying at Ashley Madison, they'll help you out.
No, not there. You got to keep everything private.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
If we're running these scenarios through the filter of, is this in my best interest? And then you don't tell them.
Yeah.
That's the other piece.
I agree.
That's the other piece.
Sorry, bro.
And I think I like what you were saying, dude. That actually made sense as far as if you disclose it, there's a known outcome. You're hit. Mm-hmm. If you don't disclose it, you don't know what's going on in your friend and his, like you said, there's so many other variables. You don't know what's actually going on in their relationship. You don't know how the news, it is the onus of responsibility on you to potentially ruin something. There's too many variables. I want to let them know.
Out of what? Why do you want to let them know?
It seems the right thing to do.
Yeah, is it out of you're loyal to your friend?
Feels good, Jeff?
Loyalty is the factor here, right? Loyalty to my buddies, which I feel like I'm pretty loyal to my buddies. But here's the thing, though. So if you were in this situation and you were the buddy and you knew that me telling you would ruin my career and maybe, devastate my family financially, would you then want me to tell?
Nope.
Most guys would say no.
Actually, no.
Right. Yeah. So loyalty works both ways. Loyalty does not mean that I'm going to tell you something I know that will result in my career suffering and my family. Like, that's not loyalty. That's stupidity.
That helps me finalize my decision.
True. What is it? Selfly assured or mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
That's a good point too. Yeah, like what if? Yeah, that's a weird one. Like,
because I wouldn't want.
I would only tell you, quote unquote, if you were my real friend. But my real friend wouldn't want me to get canned from my job by telling him.
Yeah. If you had all those circumstances, if he was your real buddy, he'd be like, "No, dude, just I'll figure it out."
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's how I've kind of wrapped my mind around it.
On something that would probably surface on its own in some way.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to that, that's usually the part. It's like, I'm assuming how this looks, but there's so much there I have no idea if it's actually true. Because what if you decide, like, I got to be loyal to my buddy, and then you tell him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, dude, we already talked. Like, we're getting a divorce. Like, it's over." And then
and now
then you lose your job, and then your friend's like, "Dude, you idiot!" Like, there's just too much not factual on that side of it. So for me, it's like, I know this is for sure, and what's going to happen there. So.
I know I wouldn't want my friend to put himself out. So that's fine.
Right. Well, so to wrap this thing up, I mean, I don't know. The whole thing about this is this kind of goes back to who's that dude, Kohlberg? Isn't he the one who did Moral Stages?
Lawrence Kohlberg?
Yeah.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne. He invented morals and the Matrix
and Kung Fu.
Dude, yeah. I guess so he kind of goes through these different stages and everything. But anyway, what we're talking about is that as cognitive development rolls around and as we get older and we become more advanced and we learn more about each other and empathic concern, when those come together, those kind of result in this moral decision making. And this idea of I need to develop a focus on my own personal values. So I think for anybody listening to this, whether you're a client or whether you're just a listener or a clinician or whoever, I mean, these are good questions to kind of ask yourself to see where your values actually lie. And I think exchanging attitudes and ideas, I mean, I would wonder if even in this room, minds changed as we were talking about some of these things, because it's like, oh, wait, no, that's a good point. And then we kind of go over that. Or it reemphasized why you were doing this beyond just like, oh, yeah, that's the thing I would do. I think sometimes you think this is the right thing to do, but knowing why that's the right thing to do is critical for you continuing to do that. So just saying, because that's like the old like when your parents say do this and then they're too lazy to give you an explanation. So you say, why? Because I said so. Well, that's not good enough. Like, I mean, that should be good enough, but that's not good enough. And I know that's not good enough. Like, you need to give an explanation and it can be frustrating, but in our minds, we need to get there too. Making the right decision is more right when we know why it's right. So that's a big part of why we do this.
We find that out through forcing ourselves into uncomfortable situations, uncomfortable decisions where there's always an option C, D, E, and F. But by making your wedge into an A or a B, you find out what your actual values are a lot quicker.
Yeah, and by the way, man, these are fake. But anybody listening to this, like you
mean this wasn't real?
Well, this is pretend land. I mean, we're just using thought experiments here. There's no reason to not get, just really think about what you would do in these situations, because all of us at one point or another are going to be faced with a decision that has two equally shitty outcomes, and we're going to have to make a decision. Like, that's all there is to it. And no decision is correct, but we want to know why you're making that decision. Like, you want to know why you're making that decision. Ultimately, that if the result of your decision results in two equally crappy outcomes, what you should do is stick to your values. But if you don't know your values, talking about these moral dilemmas is very helpful for helping you define your own personal values, so you know what you would do in those circumstances.
So if Doc Brown shows up in a time machine and says, "Hey, Mace, we're going to go back and kill baby Hitler," would you do it?
Hell yeah, dude.
When I was in grad school, we had a shout out NAU 2015. It was in like a developmental psych class. And we were talking about exactly this, about Kohlberg's stages of development and morals and everything. And that was like the opener for class was, would you kill baby Hitler?
I wouldn't kill Hitler though. What I would do is in the midst of traveling back in time, I'd kill Doc Brown, and then I'd go back to like when I was in high school, and I'd be like, "Don't say that stupid shit to that girl, dude. Like, don't do that, dude. Like, you're gonna look like an idiot."
That's
like,
another podcast. What would you do with the DeLorean?
yeah.
Dude.
I wouldn't go back and kill Hitler because, I mean, I read that book. What was that book by Stephen King about killing Kennedy? Anyway,
You go back and do crazy
history
fun stuff.
history would get all messed up. I'd have the least amount of impact.
butterfly.
I'd just go back and like say, "Hey, dude, I'm you from the future.
Look,
just don't look like an idiot."
Here's the code to beat Contra.
what was his name? Biff? He had the right idea.
Yeah, he turned
Sports Almanac.
Yeah,
dude.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, dude.
He turned into Donald Trump.
You did turn into Trump.
No, we had for like the rest of my program, we had we just show up for class because there were 10 of us, and we had to be pretty tight. And we just show up for class, and one day be like, because everyone except for one dude said he'd kill baby Hitler, and so anytime we wanted to dig at that dude for the rest of the time, just
It's
like,
weird, though.
Garrison didn't.
I wouldn't do that.
Garrison's not going to kill Hitler, so
I wouldn't do that. Not because of Hitler. I wouldn't do that because, I mean, how.
Be cooler stuff to do.
Well,
Wait, what was this Hitler apologist's name? Garrison?
His name's Garrison.
Garrison
Garcia.
Mr.
What's up, dude?
I agree with you, dude. Like, if you didn't kill Hitler, maybe you don't exist. Like, I like being me. See, I'm gonna do unto the others that render me the best results.
Yeah.
Right. And if killing Hitler, I don't know what's gonna happen after that. Maybe I never exist.
Well, you don't want someone to kill you.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that. You do that, and then it's that whole time thing, and you just disappear. You're all, oh shit! What did I do?
I know people have talked about killing baby Mace if they could go back in time.
Well, the problem if we get rid of Hitler, then we don't have anyone to compare every politician.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Literally
Hitler. Yeah.
Where would politics go?
By the way, folks, that doesn't mean we're Hitler advocates because we wouldn't go back in time with Doc Brown and kill
And
Hitler.
in fairness to Garrison, he was he's a good dude.
Don't
super
stick
good
up for
dude.
Garrison.
Yeah, don't stick up for that.
No.
Hitler
His whole thing was, I'm not going to go kill a baby. Like, I'm not going to go back in time and kill a baby.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
That whole thing.
Find teenager Hitler.
Yeah.
Would you kill teenager
Find him
Hitler?
just out of art school.
Yeah, teenager, zit-infested Hitler, doing those shitty paintings.
Kill that Hitler.
Yeah.
Your art sucks.
Yeah. Good. All right.
Should we close it down?
Yeah, we'll wrap this up. Hey, man, we really appreciate you coming around.
Thanks, Ed.
You gonna do this again?
Oh yeah.
All right, cool. This is a good episode for this. So yeah, we'll have you again, man. Any other thoughts on this?
No.
Cool. Let's wrap up.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, folks, that does it for this episode of the podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in. We would like to thank Mr. Brett Hoxer for joining us on the show. That was a really fun one. Hope you enjoyed the moral dilemmas. So make sure you go on, follow us on whatever it is you choose to listen to podcasts on, and then also Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz. But we do want some responses on the moral dilemma one. So look us up online. Also check us out. Got our stuff up on YouTube. So it's Guerrilla Social Work Podcast, GUERRILLA, Guerrilla Social Work Podcast. And we're going to see you on the next episode where we're going to talk about guilt and shame. See you then.